Welcome to New Hampshire, where a political revolution is underway. On the Democratic side, Bernie Sanders.
The business model of Wall Street is fraud.
Has turned the political establishment upside down.
I think that there is far more right with our country than is wrong.
Hillary Clinton may be down double digits in the polls, but we've seen this movie before. Could this be a comeback?
Thank you, New Hampshire!
On the Republican side.
I want the best people negotiating for our country.
Businessman Donald Trump has electrified Granite State voters. But will his star power be enough to fend off his rivals?
Our constitutional rights are under assault each and every day.
Ted Cruz off his hot win in Iowa, looking for a strong finish. While candidates like Kasich, Bush, and Christie fight to move on. It's do or die tonight, and everything hangs in the balance. Put down that remote. The votes are being counted, and we have every angle covered.
This is an NH1 News Decision 2016 special report, the historic New Hampshire primary. Your host tonight, NH1 Political Director Paul Steinhauser and NH1 News anchor Kiki Bensel. Our team coverage starts right now.
Good evening. I'm NH1 News Political Director Paul Steinhauser.
And I'm Kiki Bensel. They predicted a record turnout for the primary, and it looks like it's happening tonight. Check out this line in Hudson where people waited outside in the cold for up to 20 minutes to vote. The polls closed just moments ago.
And here's what's going on in Hudson right now. If you're waiting online, don't worry. If it's after 8 o'clock, which it is, they're going to let you in Hudson. Huge lines there back in 08 and in 12 as well. 9,000 people voting in the primaries each time. Probably going to break that record tonight. Let's go to Merrimack, and all day long it has been crazy as well. Take a look at this, a nearly 3-mile line of cars waiting to park so people could vote. Record turnouts expected across the state. Now joining us on the phone right now, Bill Boyd, a Merrimack Town Councilor, to talk about the problems today.
Bill, tell us what happened at the polls. Why was there such a long wait?
I wouldn't call it a long wait at the polls, to be honest with you, Kiki and Paul. It was actually traffic of people actually driving into Merrimack High School today. That was probably the source of a lot of voter frustration.
And our Chantel McCabe has been embedded in the Sanders camp today. She's joining us live now from there here in Concord. Chantel, tell us what's the mood there as this news rolls in tonight.
Yeah, Kiki, it has been crazy so far inside of Concord High School's gymnasium. Just seconds ago, it was announced by CNN and, of course, the Associated Press that Bernie Sanders is predicted to win New Hampshire.
Now let's take this conversation another step further, and let's bring in our Charlie Sherman, our anchor. Let's bring in Gail Huff, our contributor, and let's bring in businessman from Bedford, Sean O'Connor. He's running in the 1st Congressional District, and he's also one of the only Bernie Sanders supporters among people running for statewide office or in the congressional districts. Guys, take it away.
All right, thank you, Paul. All right, Sean, let's start with that. Where's the establishment? You're the only guy who stepped up for Bernie.
You know, I mean, I'm really proud that I was willing to, put principle above politics and above the establishment and go out on a limb for Bernie at a time when it wasn't so certain that he would win by what I think will be a significant margin tonight.
And 2 more numbers I want to show you. We always talk about the undeclared voters, the independents. They make up 44% of the electorate. Well, where did they vote tonight? Among Democratic primary voters, 41% were undeclared. 55% were registered Democrats. Go to the Republican numbers. Let's take a look at those as well. Undeclared voters on the Republican side, they made up 35% of those who voted in the Republican primary today. 62% were registered Republican voters. So some really interesting numbers right here. We're going to be going through these exit polls all night long, but right now I want to give it back to Kiki.
Thanks a lot, Paul. We want to get out to our Siobhan Lopez. She is live tonight in Senator Ted Cruz's camp, a Republican candidate. Let's turn things over to her. She's in Hollis this evening. Siobhan, we're hearing that Donald Trump has been projected to be the Republican winner tonight. Are you hearing anything about that tonight in Hollis?
Yeah, well, a lot of these Ted Cruz supporters here are hoping that that's just too early to tell. That is just a projection at this point.
Now, I know that it was an early prediction that Donald Trump was going to win here in New Hampshire, but now the battle is on for second place. And this is something that John Kasich really needed. His supporters have filled this room here. You can hear them cheering every time the numbers come up. He sits in second place right now. It is very early as these votes come in, but John Kasich currently sitting in second place. Again, the battle on for third place, but his supporters here are very excited.
Tonight, a break in New Hampshire cold case murders.
Could there be victims out there like that we don't know about? Certainly there could.
Investigators point to one man as the alleged killer. New Hampshire law enforcement know him as Robert Bob Evans.
I will say that he was a careful guy. He did not give away much about himself, and when he did, it seemed to be pretty calculating. He went with at least 5 other confirmed aliases.
Investigators following the complicated DNA trail from New Hampshire all the way to California. But tonight, the question remains, who's Bob Evans? Tonight, investigators revealing details about a serial killer who killed at least 5 victims here in New Hampshire. But there may have been others. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kiki Venzel.
And I'm Sherry Small in for Charlie Sherman. Investigators say that they believe that the man is known here in New Hampshire as Bob Evans. They say he is responsible for the murder of a Manchester woman whose remains have yet to be found.
And also the deaths of 4 still unidentified victims in Allenstown and the murder of his girlfriend buried in their California basement.
It is a complicated web, but investigators say that they're hoping that by releasing what they do know about this man, they can piece together his whereabouts and perhaps solve even more cold cases. NH1's Celine MacArthur tells us what investigators know and the questions that remain tonight.
1981 was the last time family members saw Denise Bowden. She was living at this Manchester home with her 6-month-old daughter and boyfriend Bob Evans. All 3 suddenly vanished. Family thought they left for financial reasons, so an investigation was never launched. In the years following, Evans made his way around the country. His exact whereabouts are difficult to trace because he had about a half-dozen aliases.
This is a guy who was a chameleon, who used different names, very careful about the details that he gave other people.
Back in New Hampshire in 1985, investigators are stumped after a hunter made a gruesome discovery. The bodies of an adult woman and female child found in a barrel in Allenstown. Their identities to this day are still unknown.
What's clear is that this is somebody who targets females and specifically children as well.
In 1986, Evans and the girl now identified as Denise Bowden's daughter were living at a California RV park. That's where he abandoned the girl, who was later adopted. Then in 1988, Evans was arrested in California under yet another name. He was driving a stolen vehicle from Idaho. He served a 3-year sentence, was paroled, and once again vanished, this time for 12 years. Back in New Hampshire in 2000, a second barrel found in Allenstown, the remains of 2 young girls inside. Investigators are again unable to identify them or their killer. While on the lam, investigators say Evans had an unofficial marriage with this woman, Yoon Son-jun. She was reported missing in 2002. Her body found buried in kitty litter in her basement. Evans pled guilty, given a sentence of 15 years to life, and he died behind bars in 2010.
Certainly looks like this is a guy who didn't want to be alone, who would form relationships and take advantage of that relationship, and then at some point, obviously, he would end it.
In the meantime, Denise Bowden's daughter, now an adult, underwent DNA tests. The information linked her to New Hampshire. DNA also confirming that Evans is the father of the middle child found in one of the Allenstown barrels. But so many questions remain unanswered. Who are these 4? And who is the mother to Evans' child? And where is Denise Bowden?
The conclusion is that she's dead somewhere in between New Hampshire and California.
Investigators are calling this man Bob Evans, but they aren't certain that's his legal name. They're hoping by putting his image out there, others may remember him. He may have lived in a number of different states. We'll look closer at what we know about him at 5:30. Celine MacArthur, NH1 News.
Footprints of a serial killer. Again, here are some important dates in this case. In 1981, Bob Evans was living with Denise Bowden and her daughter in Manchester when they all disappeared. Bowden has never been found and is presumed dead. Evans abandoned her young daughter in California. She was later adopted. Turn now to 1985. A barrel was found at Bear Brook State Park in Allenstown, New Hampshire. Inside, the bodies of a woman and young girl. In May of 2000, a second barrel was discovered at the very same park. 2 girls were found inside. And 12 years later, in 2002, Evans was arrested when the body of his wife, Unsoon June, was found buried in their California basement. He was sentenced to 15 years to life and died in a California prison of natural causes 8 years later. In 2016, New Hampshire investigators were contacted by San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department.
Investigators say Bob Evans is responsible for the deaths of Denise Bowden, 4 unidentified people in Allenstown, and Unsoon June. Let's take a closer look at exactly who these victims are. Now, we begin with Denise Bowden, who graduated from Goffstown High School in 1976. She worked at Carroll Cable and the Demers Nursing Home in Manchester before her disappearance. Now, when Bowden was 23 years old, she lived at 925 Hayward Street in Manchester with Evans, who was her boyfriend at the time. Now, shortly after Thanksgiving in 1981, Bowden disappeared, her body never found. 4 years later, the bodies of an adult woman and a female child related to that woman were found in a barrel in a wooded area of Allenstown. The adult, described as a white woman with brown hair, 23 to 33 years old. The child, described as white and between the ages of 5 and 11. Then in 2000, 2 more children were found in barrels on the same Allenstown property. Both girls were around 2 or 3 years old. New DNA results show that the girl on the left is the daughter of Bob Evans, and the girl on the right is also related to the unidentified woman found in the first barrel. None of the bodies have been identified. Fast forward a year later, in August 2001, Unsoon June had an unofficial backyard marriage ceremony with Evans in Richmond, California. She was reported missing in September of the following year and later found buried in her basement. A couple of months later, Evans was arrested and eventually convicted for her murder. For more coverage and the entire press conference from the Attorney General, you can head to nh1.com/serialkiller. And stay tuned, we'll have even more information coming up tonight at 5:30.
After more than a year and a half,
I'm running for president.
I am officially running for President of the United States.
It all comes down to this.
We're going to win the great state of New Hampshire.
If you want to be part of a positive, optimistic, confident, unifying future, please come out and vote on November 8th here in New Hampshire.
The Granite State's 4 electoral votes are up for grabs tonight, and whichever candidate wins them may very well win the White House. It's one of the most high-profile, expensive, and negative U.S. Senate races in the country.
This is an incredibly misleading attack by Senator Ayotte.
I've been attacked on my character. I have been attacked with misleading ads about my record, and Governor Hassan has not said anything about it.
And the deadlock battle between Republican incumbent Kelly Ayotte and Democratic challenger Maggie Hassan could very well determine which party controls the Senate. In the race to succeed Hassan as governor, it's become an ugly battle between fellow executive counselors.
And the fact that you've taken $40,000 brings into the question of ethics, of morality, and of checks and balances.
Look, I'm not going to have any mock outrage from Chris Sununu on this. He's taken tens of thousands of dollars from the biggest utility company in the state.
It's Judgment Day in the race between Democrat Colin Van Osteren and Republican Chris Sununu. Plus, Republican Congressman Frank Ginta faces a familiar foe and a new one. And Democratic Congresswoman Annie Kuster takes on a new challenger. Also up for grabs, control of the Executive Council, the State House, and the State Senate. The NH1 News Decision 2016 election night coverage begins right now.
Good evening. We start with breaking news tonight. New Hampshire appears to be on the way to a record statewide turnout. The Republican stronghold of Londonderry reporting a record turnout. The same story in the Democratic stronghold of Durham, where they had to rush in 3,000 more ballots.
But the big controversy this hour, Kiki, next door in the neighboring city of Dover, another Democratic stronghold. Polls just closed there, but the city officials, they kept the polls open an extra hour because of a clerical error, and that's got some state Republicans. They're probably pretty angry. One of them may be state GOP chair Jennifer Horn, who joins our Gail Huff live at the Kelly headquarters right here in Concord. Gail.
That's right. We're at the Grapponi Center. We have many people who have filed in. One of those, of course, being the director of the NHGOP. That is Jennifer Horn. And thank you very much, first of all, for joining us. We have a long night ahead. Let's start out with this Dover controversy.
I believe we have our Sherry Small on standby right now. She's covering the U.S. Senate campaign of Governor Maggie Hassan tonight. A very close race there between Senator Kelly Ayotte and Governor Maggie Hassan. Sherry, have you seen the governor yet?
No, Kiki, we have not seen the governor yet, but people are starting to pour in just about a half an hour ago.
This is the fourth straight election that Shea Porter and Ginta have faced each other. I think that's never been done before in any congressional race anywhere in the U.S. Well, let's get down to Manchester, because at Murphy's Tap Room, we've got our own Charlie Sherman, and this is the headquarters for, of course, Frank Ginta. Charlie, what's going on?
All right, thank you very much, Paul. Well, that's right. Frank Ginta headquarters here tonight is at Murphy's Tap Room in downtown Manchester. And as you said, this is the fourth time that Frank Ginta and Carol Shea Porter have met head-to-head in an election for the District 1 congressional seat.
A first alert weather warning, a fast-moving winter storm dropping impressive amounts of snow across New Hampshire.
At the height of the storm, a desperate search for a man who disappeared. Our Colleen Shaughnessy on scene as first responders rushed to his aid.
But it's this man that is where the accumulation is just rapid, it is fast, and it is furious. The storm impacting both commutes.
Driving conditions terrible, whiteout conditions reported in many locations.
And stay home and stay off the roads if they can do so. The road crews will continue all night long.
Keeping you up to date on the storm from start to finish.
If you are right in the Salem or Plastow area in the Merrimack Valley, it's very light snow. But it's only a matter of miles until you get into snow that's 2 or 3 inches per hour.
Our coverage continues right now.
Some rapidly changing weather conditions here in New Hampshire. This is a live look over the city of Manchester at this hour. 50 degrees one day to more than a foot of snow in some spots today. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Kiki Vensel.
And I'm Celine MacArthur. We still have a few hours left of this massive storm, so let's kick off our team coverage with our NH1 weather team and Chief Meteorologist Joe Joyce in the studio. And Joe, where is it the heaviest now?
Mostly at the seacoast, and it is rapidly starting to wind up, so we are going to see this gradual improvement as we head through the evening, but it's just going to be cold now. Let's take a look outside with meteorologist Ryan Breton, who's been out there monitoring the conditions and the roads. Ryan?
That's right, Joe. We're out here in the first alert storm tracker. You can see right now we're in the northern part of Concord. One thing that we have noticed is there's a little bit of a light sheen on the roads.
A challenging search for this man. He disappeared during the storm. NH1 was first on scene and our cameras were rolling as he was found. NH1's Colleen Shaughnessy was right there and has the update on his condition tonight.
First responders are crediting a police canine for locating Jack just a couple hundred yards into the woods. You can see the tracks here in the snow. As soon as word came across the radio that he was found, the entire search crew ran to help.
Well, state police, just one of many state agencies working during the storm. Our Jennifer Courier has been in touch with several of them. She joins us now live in Concord with more, and definitely needed to be a team effort today, Jennifer.
Absolutely, Celine. Today it was all hands on deck as state police, as you said, the governor.
Now on NH1 Newsmakers, Donald Trump back in New Hampshire the morning after the debate he skipped. The Republican presidential frontrunner talking one-on-one with NH1 News.
He's going down. Ted Cruz is going down. Plus, he has the Canada problem. I mean, he's got a huge problem. That problem with Canada as to whether or not he can even run. I think he cannot run.
How am I doing, though? Well, you know,
you're reasonable, you're pragmatic, you're reasonable.
Keep
you seem
coming.
like,
Keep coming.
John Kasich having some fun in the Granite State, where the Ohio governor's been spending almost all his time.
There's only so many resources to go around for us, and we're very comfortable here.
New Jersey Governor Chris Christie on his New Hampshire primary expectations.
I want to be the first governor to finish here, and that's what we intend to do, and that's what we are going to do on February 9th.
So Ohio loves him.
And with a week and a half to go, it's all about the ground game.
We have volunteers from all over the country who are coming into New Hampshire.
We hit the campaign trail to gauge the Get Out the Vote efforts. NH1 Newsmaker starts right now. Welcome to NH1 Newsmakers. I'm political director Paul Steinhauser. Donald Trump was back in New Hampshire on Friday, flying into the Granite State just hours after the Republican presidential debate, a debate in Iowa that he skipped in protest against Fox News. Trump held a rally in Nashua, and minutes before he took the stage, he spoke exclusively with NH1 News about the debate, his own event, and much more. Mr. Trump, last night, Fox News put out a statement. They said that you said you would do the debate if they gave a $5 million charity to the charity you would like. You didn't mention that when you talked to CNN on your plane last night. Did you, in fact, ask for that in charity?
Well, the question wasn't asked. Yeah, I want money to go to charity. And Fox News and, frankly, others like CNN should. They're making a fortune with the debates. And Fox News did something which was inappropriate. They wanted to get me in the debate. They would have gotten one of the highest ratings ever if we had, if they had the full contingent, meaning if they had me in it. And I wanted to do it, but I said I want $5 million to go to the veterans. And they were unable to come up with that money. And I raised $6 million, Paul, as you saw, for the veterans by doing my own event. And I actually think my own event was better for me than doing the debate. It worked out to be fantastic. We had a packed house. We had thousands and thousands of people. It got covered to the same extent as the debate and maybe more. But I raised $6 million for the veterans, so I was very proud of that.
Let's talk about that, because with you not there at the Fox debate last night, your main rival in Iowa, Ted Cruz, listen, he was getting pummeled from left and right. Was this maybe by design? Did you think about this all along?
Well, a lot of things have happened since then, because you saw the result. And he did. He got very badly hurt, and he's going down. Ted Cruz is going down. Plus, he has the Canada problem. I mean, he's got a huge problem. That problem with Canada as to whether or not he can even run. I think he cannot run. So we'll see what happens. But
it wasn't by design for you.
Pummeled. Well, I'd like to tell you it was by design. Maybe it was by instinct, okay? But it was not a good night for him, and it wasn't good for a couple of the other folks. It was not good at all. And in the meantime, I had my forum, and I had tremendous numbers of veterans, and we raised $6 million, and it was a good night for us.
Would you say, though, in any way that Fox News did win? A, Megyn Kelly still was the moderator, and B, they did not give you the $5 million you asked for charity.
Well, I never asked that Megyn be taken off, number one, and I don't care about Megyn Kelly. I couldn't care less. I don't think she's very good at what she does, but I couldn't care less. But I never asked for that. I wanted $5 million for the vets. The vets have been mistreated. The networks have plenty of money. Fox has plenty of money. I said $5 million for the vets. And when they didn't do it, I went out and raised $6 million for the vets. So the vets did even better.
We're here in New Hampshire. There is another Republican debate right here in 8 days. Are you going to be going to that debate?
I think I will be, yeah. I look forward to it. I look forward to the debates. As you know, and as everybody has been saying, I won every single debate. Every online poll has me as winning the debates. I actually like doing the debates. Yeah, I've never done it before, in all fairness, but I do like doing the debates, and I will be here. I love this place. I have special friends. I'm doing really well here. The polls just came out again. I'm doing really well here. So I will be in New Hampshire doing the debates.
Do you feel like you were mocked at all at the beginning of the debate last night by Ted Cruz and some of your other rivals?
No, I didn't even watch the whole debate. I'm going to watch it later. No, not at all. I think it worked out great. Look, it was great for me. It was great for me. And it was great for the vets that I didn't do it, because we ended up getting more money than Fox would have paid.
Finally, there's a guy here, a tattoo artist here. He owns a bunch of shops in this state, and he's giving away free tattoos for people who want your logo or your photo on their body. And his business is good, from what I hear.
So he's a Trump fan.
He's a big Trump fan.
Maybe I'll have to have a tattoo for the first time in my life. Maybe not, though.
Well, Trump's been in Iowa all this weekend, and he stays there tomorrow for the caucus as he returns to the Granite State on Tuesday. Now, tomorrow when Iowa holds the caucuses, they kick off the presidential primary and caucus calendar. And while they head to their caucuses, only 3 presidential candidates will be here in New Hampshire instead of the Hawkeye state. 2 of them, they spoke one-on-one with NH1 News a few days ago.
Good morning. Good morning.
Chris Christie greeting supporters among the breakfast crowd at the Country View restaurant in Greenland. The New Jersey governor taking a shot at 3 U.S. senators running against him for the GOP nomination.
First, they tell you what time to show up. Then they tell you where to sit. Then they tell you what questions you're going to be asked. Then they tell you when recess is. And they tell you when you can go home. Just like being in school, I can tell you as being governor or being an executive, that's not the way it works.
Before leaving the restaurant, Christie spoke one-on-one with NH1 News. About a month ago, you were on with my old colleague, Jake Tapper. Yep. And he asked you then, hey, what do you think you need? You need a 4th place, a 3rd place, a 2nd place? And you said, talk to me after January 15th. Yeah. Well, it's after January 15th, so let's ask that same question.
Yeah, I want to be the best governor in New Hampshire. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to accomplish. I want to be the first governor to finish here, and that's what we intend to do, and that's what we are going to do on February 9th.
No predictions of what you need?
Well, I don't know what place. I don't think that matters as much. There's so many people that I think the number is much less important now than it is where do you finish relative to the people who you're compared to. I want to be the #1 governor. That's what I intend to be.
Christie's campaigning in Iowa this weekend. He holds one more event there tomorrow morning. But in a sign of just how important the Granite State is to Christie's hopes of winning the GOP nomination, he flies back to New Hampshire tomorrow in time for a late afternoon town hall in Hopkinton, followed by a nighttime event in Nashua.
The next president of the United States, John Kasich.
A few minutes after talking to Christie, we headed to Newmarket, where Ohio's Republican governor was holding a town hall at the Old Stone Church and joking with a man in the audience.
How am I doing, though? Well, you know, you're reasonable, you're pragmatic, you're reasonable.
Keep coming. Keep coming.
Kasich started this past week in New Hampshire, then spent 2 days in Iowa for the Republican presidential debate. But he was back on the Granite State campaign trail by Saturday, and he'll be here all day tomorrow when Iowa holds its caucus. I'm not asking if you're writing off Iowa, but you're placing a lot more emphasis here, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many resources to go around for us, and we're very comfortable here. I mean, it's, 1.3 million, and everybody is pretty centrally located, and Iowa's a different challenge and a different environment. So, we don't disrespect the people there, but this has been a lot of emphasis of ours, and as we build out across the country.
And finally, we've talked about this before, but with 2 weeks to go, I got to ask you again. What do you think realistically you need here to continue on? Is it a 3rd place finish, a 4th, a 2nd? What do you feel like you need?
We'll decide that on the 10th, when we'll see where we are, and we'll make an assessment as to whether we should move on, and I expect that we will. I think with our ground game and with all the work we've done here, I feel really good about things.
Kasich and Christie have spent more time in New Hampshire than any other candidate in either party. But Kasich leads when it comes to town hall. He's held 84 through yesterday. You going to get to 100?
Oh, we'll see. We're going to do as many as we can. We'll see. We'll let you know. All right. If we get to 99, we'll call you. Well, coming up on NH1 Newsmakers.
Ted Cruz campaign.
The ground game. We're on the campaign trail with volunteers flooding into New Hampshire.
I feel that I can't wait till the primaries in New Jersey to make a difference. I have to do it now.
Plus,
these are our human rights, and I heard someone say, well, society's not ready for it. Well, society needs to be ready for our human rights.
Advocates say it's time to make New Hampshire the first state in the nation to end prostitution as a crime. And later,
it is a huge tax on employers and on individuals in the state that have health insurance.
It's not really a work requirement. It's a work requirement if the federal government allows us to have a work requirement. And if the federal government says no, then it's not a work requirement.
A new plan to keep alive the expansion of Medicaid coverage. Fans say it will lower uncompensated costs in hospitals. Foes say it's falsely advertised.